Okay, let's see. Why don't we turn today to John's Gospel, chapter 5. John's Gospel, chapter 5, and I'd like to begin reading with verse 24. This is Jesus speaking. I believe the setting is in Jerusalem in the temple, and he has just performed a miracle. Jesus has just healed a man, and we might think everyone would applaud and cheer this man that got healed, but the trouble was it was on the Sabbath day, and Jesus told the man who was lame and couldn't walk to get up and roll up his bed and carry his bed away, because he was not going to be coming back there anymore. He was healed. And so the man picked up his bed, carried it away, and the Jewish leaders and the Jews who were present didn't like that. They were seemingly indifferent to the man who got healed, but what really got their attention was he was carrying his bed on the Sabbath day, and they felt like that's not what you should do. That's not the proper way to observe the Sabbath, and they said, don't carry your bed. And he said, well, I have to, because the man who healed me said carry your bed and carry it away. And so I'm going to listen to him instead of you, basically is what he said. And so Jesus then got into a little discussion with people who didn't really believe in him. So that's the context. He's talking to people who were not really sympathetic to him, who were not believers in him. And he wasn't shy about, and he didn't back down from the fact of presenting the fact of who he was and what he came to do. And he's saying some very interesting and really for his time and even for our time, radical things. And I like this verse 24, John chapter 5, verse 24. Jesus said, verily, verily. Now, whenever you read Jesus saying, verily, verily, it's like saying, I'm telling you the truth, I'm telling you the truth. He's emphasizing it by saying it twice. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath, that means hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. First of all, in this verse, this is a very interesting and important verse. First of all, notice the only thing that Jesus asks for on our part is to believe. Did you notice that? Let me read that again. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on him that sent me hath everlasting life, and shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death unto life. The thing that he asks for is a single thing, that we believe. In other words, he that hears my word, we hear the word and we believe the word. Or we hear the message about Jesus, and then we believe that message about Jesus. That's the only thing he's asking for, is to hear the message about Jesus and to believe the message about Jesus. And then the rest of what he has to say are just facts or statements of fact about what's now true of a person who hears the message of Jesus and believes the message of Jesus. Number one, he has everlasting life. Number two, shall not come into condemnation. And number three, the last one is what I want to talk about first. I want to take this last one. But is passed from death unto life. Now I think this is worth talking about. And I want to talk about that first, because this is the reason why the other things are true. When he says, is passed from death unto life, please consider for a moment what it is that he means by that. Because Jesus is not standing in the cemetery talking to people who are dead physically, is he? No, he's not. He's not speaking to people who are physically dead, but he's speaking to people who didn't believe in him, and he says, is passed from death unto life. Now, if you want to understand what he means by this, beyond me just explaining it to you, the New Testament uses language like this. Anton, would you put on the screen for a moment Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1? I'm going to come right back here to John, but just for a second, Anton's going to show you. This is Paul's epistle to the Ephesians. And Paul says, and you hath he quickened who were dead in trespasses and sins. He's speaking to Christians, and he says, now he's speaking, remember, before you became a Christian, he said, before you knew Christ, he said, you were, listen to this expression, dead in trespasses and sins. Now, he doesn't mean dead physically. He uses the word dead to talk about a person who is separated or alienated from God, or who has not yet believed in Jesus. Anton, also in this chapter 2 of Ephesians, give me verse 5. Paul uses it again in verse 5 of the same chapter. Even when we were dead in sins, He's made us alive. Quickened means made alive. He's quickened us or made us alive together with Christ. By grace are you saved. The only reason I want to show you that verse is so you see this expression. Even when we were, look at the words, dead in sins. Now, Anton, now you can go back to John chapter 5, verse 24. So when Jesus said, but is passed from death unto life, He doesn't mean physical death and physical life because He's talking to people that are alive. He means by that the condition of being separated or alienated from God because of sin or because of sins. Now, he's talking about a transference or a removing from one condition and being brought into another condition. And he says, you were formerly in a condition called dead in trespasses and sins. Now notice, please consider again this verse. Let me read the whole verse again. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that heareth my word and believeth on Him that sent me, the requirement that he asks for is to believe, has everlasting life, shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death, meaning dead in sins, to life, meaning everlasting life. Now notice what he didn't say. He didn't say, he that straightens up and gets everything fixed up and never does anything wrong anymore, because you never do anything wrong, naturally you're not condemned. You see, this wouldn't make any sense if we could do it ourselves, in other words. Notice he didn't say, you got yourselves out of the mess and now you're okay. He says, he that hears and believes. See, the thing that's interesting about believing, when we preach that you should believe in Jesus, when we say believe on a Savior, when we say believe in Him, that means you're believing in Him, but it means you're also not believing in yourself. Or it means, let's say another way, you're trusting in someone other than yourself. It means now I'm not trusting in myself to be good enough, but I'm trusting in Jesus to save me, or to be my goodness for me, or to give me His goodness. Can I say it that way? Now sometimes that rubs us a little bit the wrong way, because what sometimes people think you're saying is, if you say I'm not trusting in myself to be good enough, but I'm trusting in Jesus to save me, even though I know I'm not good enough, what some people read into that is what you're saying is, I'm trusting in Him to save me because I'm not good enough, therefore I'm going to live like a dog. I'm going to be really bad. See, recognizing the fact that we're not good enough. But see, here's the thing about it. Jesus says when you believe in Him, when you hear His word and believe, something changes. He says, you have everlasting life, shall not come into condemnation, but is passed from death to life. In other words, the thing that we do is to believe in Jesus, but the thing that He does is He translates us or removes us out of a former condition into a new condition. And Jesus gives us something. Did you notice He said, He hath everlasting life? Now, when we think of everlasting life, we think of a length of time, and that's true. But, it's also true, well, let's just say it this way. It's more than a length of time, it's a quality of life, or it's a different kind of life. It's a life different than the one you had before.